Hello and greetings, everyone. My name's Judd Hendricks, and I want to welcome you to Interfaith Paths to Peace LouLab. This is our Thursday afternoon program, and we have an exciting treat for you today. We have a great conversation on bridging city and country, a conversation with Kentucky Rural Exchange. We also have Savannah Barrett, who's a co-founder with RUX is what they call themselves for short. And then we also have special guests Mariel Gardner and Travis Fulgate, who are part of the RUX local group that's going through the program right now and are doing some really amazing work. So we're in a treat for today. So if you're joining us on Facebook, I want to welcome you and thank you. You're always welcome to add chat in the chat box or the comment box if you have questions for our panelists or want to engage in the conversation. You're welcome to do that. For those of you that are joining us on Zoom, I want to welcome you as well, and you'll have a chance as we get going to join in the conversation if you have questions and comments as well. I do want to say, as we're starting, Interfaith Paths to Peace is taking nominations for our Peacemaker Awards. We give these out at our Recipe for Peace every year. You can see in the box above the address. If you would like to make some nominations for the Peacemaker of the Year Awards, we've got 5 categories, and you can go in there and fill those names out and recommend people to be awarded and recognized as peacemakers. So I encourage you to do that as well. This program will be recorded and put up on our Facebook, and on our IPP webpage if you want to go back or send it out and share it with friends. So welcome everyone, especially Savannah, Mariel, and Travis. Appreciate you all giving us some time today. So the topic, bridging the city and the country, or bridging the rural divide, one of the things Interfaith Paths to Peace is really interested in is these places in our communities where we're experiencing division. Where it feels like people are not connecting, whether that be around race, whether it be around religion or worldview. And if you can imagine any political map, we can see that one of the largest divides that we're experiencing in worldview, in ways in which people practice, see the world, is the difference between our rural and urban communities. In fact, some are saying this is the major new world divide, that it's not only in the United States, but in other countries as well. We're seeing these really significant divides in trying to find ways to bridge those divides is the work of peacemaking. It's the work of justice making. And so I'm really excited anytime we can find what's working on that. We always want to uplift that and to learn from that. And that's what LouLab is about. It's about seeing what's working, understanding why it's working, and how we can support it. So I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with Savannah as a local host group, and I'll let Savannah tell you a little bit more about this, but in Louisville that thinks about how we can host people from the rural area into Louisville. And I have so fallen in love with the rural urban exchange vision, but not just the vision, it's the way they're doing things that I think we all need to learn from. So Savannah, thanks so much for your vision, your energy, and tell us a little bit about you, your story, and about RUX, and then we'll jump into some other questions. Thanks so much for your vision and being on LouLab today.
Thank you for having me. And hey, y'all, good afternoon. My name is Savannah Barrett, and I work as the exchange director for a national organization called Art of the Rural. And as part of that work, I co-founded the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange with my friend Josh May from Apple Shop about 7 years ago. So I'm really grateful to be here with you today. I really admire the work of Interfaith Paths to Peace. And I almost always accidentally say pass the peas. So pass to peace. um,
That might be more appropriate for today, past the peas, since we're going to be talking about urban gardening. So
it's true. It's all coming back around.
yes.
To my country ears. Like I hear things that way too. But I'm really grateful to be joined by two of our current RUX cohort members, by Mariel and Travis, and really thankful for them kind of hopping to be a part of the conversation. All things at RUX happen when they happen. So really happy y'all could join us. And to give you some sense of my background, and to honor RUX's way of working, which believes that we can only really succeed in building relationships that transcend time and distance and divide if we share the richness of our full selves and the complexity of our places. I'll say that I'm calling in from South Louisville, the most linguistically diverse zip code in the state of Kentucky, and that I am also the steward of 6 acres of my family home place in Grayson Springs, where I am the 12th generation daughter of Grayson County, but the 6th generation to steward that piece of land. So a complex and nuanced way of coming to this call, even, that is very much both urban and rural. And so I'll introduce this topic by saying that I think a lot of folks sit in that nuanced and complex place of being both deeply connected to rural and urban places. And so I like to think of rural and urban issues as a continuum more than a binary divide. I think everyone has some relationship to both a city and a place, either a country town or just a landscape or natural space that means a lot to them. So we're all in it together. Say that from the start. And then jump into how RUX came to be. So we started 7 years ago, like I said, as a partnership between Art of the Rural and Apple Shop. Art of the Rural, again, is a national organization that works to cultivate dialogue and connect communities and bridge rural-urban exchange with communities across rural America and Indian country. And then Apple Shop, which is a more than 50-year-old community center and media making institute in the heart of the Appalachian coal fields of Eastern Kentucky. So for 7 years now, we've been working together with the statewide steering committee to build a network of strong personal relationships across the disparate regions of our state. And to do that by creating an arts-based creative leadership program that builds confidence and grows social capital and eventually bridges divides to unite Kentuckians. So RUX, as we call it for short, has grown over these 7 years to include 250 leaders from 42 counties. We've been hosted in 11 communities. What would have been our host communities in 2020 will now be 2021, will be Louisville, Muhlenberg County, and Estill County. But we've been hosted in every corner of the state. We work through a cohort model. So each year we select a statewide cohort of 75 leaders, and together they experience 6 intensive conferences over 2 years, for which they travel across rural and urban Kentucky to build connections across cultural, racial, economic, and geographic divides. So we're really invested in holding all of that complexity in one hand and showing up as our full selves to try and really understand the many versions of Kentucky that exist that are part of the whole. And I'll pause there in the sort of presentation of what RUX is to say there are really 2 approaches to adapting to rural-urban exchange and to trying to address that issue in our country. One of them, I think the approach that many organizations take, is that you think about the divisions that you want to better understand and the ways you hope to bridge them, and you try and attack the issue from the problem, right? So you might say that people are politically divided and they can't have a conversation, so we're going to try and have a political conversation that is neutral in some regard. I find that those strategies often don't work because they're not grounded in commonality. So the way that Rux has tried to approach the issue of bridging communities is by asking folks to think about the many stories of Kentucky, and the opportunities we have to weave those together through experiences and exchanges that reveal connection and commonality. So what I have found is that when we focus on one another and, you know, the songs we grew up singing and the food we grew up eating and the unique characteristics of our place that really make us who we are, that really resonates with someone who had a very different experience of growing up than I did, and that we can connect on those levels. And it actually takes a long time to get to the things we disagree with, because we're really enjoying connecting on the things that are rich and similar in some way, even if they are different on the face of it. So the work of Rux is through a formal leadership cohort program, but the real work is inviting folks to show up with their full selves and get to know each other well, have conversations and experiences in one another's communities, and through that process to grow a relationship that might become a friendship, or at the very least become some accountability from one place to another, and frequently becomes more than that, and like I said, a friendship, and sometimes even collaboration on projects. So I'll pause there.
Thanks, Savannah. Would you mind, Savannah, when we are on our calls, you always start us with a grounding of ourselves in the reality that this land was occupied before we were. Can you just start us with that little saying that you do where you remind us? Would you mind doing that?
Yeah, not at all. Hold on. Let me just bring my notes up.
Yeah, if you can pull up what you say. It's just a really beautiful reminder that I always find very grounding.
We always try and begin our time together by acknowledging that we stand on native land. In my case, standing here in South Louisville, this is land that has been inhabited by the Shawnee, the Osage, the Hopewell, the Adena, and the Cherokee people. And we think it's really important to acknowledge that our understanding of the history of this place is incomplete, and that we honor all of those who have come before us to steward this place, and that we know that present-day Kentuckians represent nearly 200 tribes with origins across the United States. So our community includes really diverse Native American experiences.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for starting us that way again. Can you talk a little about the power of your use of, I'm really interested in your use of methods when you do bring people together. Can you talk some about storytelling and the power of storytelling in your model?
Sure. You know, cultural organizing is the core part of our strategy. So storytelling is one facet of that, but in general, when we come to a community and ask and work with them to host Rux, we ask them to design an itinerary that uplifts their community's hidden treasures and reveals complexities. And folks can't just come into a space where people are telling really deep stories of where they are without being, you know, ready to be vulnerable and to tell some stories about themselves too. So we start every weekend with the story circle, which is a really important cultural organizing tradition that comes out of the South. Rux learned it from folks at Apple Shop, but also from folks at Junebug Theater out of New Orleans. They learned it from John O'Neill and the Free Southern Theater, which is, you know, was a core organizing group and strategy in the civil rights movement. So want to acknowledge that history of how we came to that work and say that we know from the civil rights movement that story circles are a really powerful way for people to be able to share things that they don't normally say out loud. And in this work in Rux, it has been a strategy for folks to come into a space that can be really intimidating. You know, 75 folks from 40-some counties across the state who, you know, you can only assume are all more qualified to be there than you are. I don't know, I feel that way a lot when I walk into a room. And then you sit down and you start to tell the story of where you come from, and you realize you have just as much to offer as everyone else in that room and just as much to learn. So we've just found it to be a really powerful tool to connect people, but also to bring everyone to the same starting place.
And share some about how people are selected to be in these cohort groups.
So we, each year, we select a cohort, again, of 75 leaders. We focus on folks working across the arts, agriculture, community development, education, health, and business. So the cohort is diverse in many ways. And significantly, we also hope that the cohort is diverse in their expertise and in their thoughts and the kinds of conversations that they want to have. So the cohort is actually selected by a panel of alumni of the program, most of whom usually serve on the steering committee. And they are always, coming from different geographies and sectors and perspectives in the state themselves, so they can advocate for applicants that present themselves in really different ways. And that's a really core value of RUCS. We don't particularly value professionalism. So it's not a question of whether or not you sit at the top of your organization's hierarchy. It's a question of your long-term commitment to Kentucky and your interest in meeting folks coming from a different place than you and really digging in with them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There's a really good question from the chat box on what do you say more about reveal complexity? You had that in your statement, and yeah, can you talk about a little more about what you mean by reveal complexity?
Sure. Well, I think one of the problems in this cultural moment is that folks think of rural and urban places as monolithic. They think all of it is one thing. When the truth is that every single place, even every city block, every field is made up of, thousands of stories from people from all different times. And so when we say, for example, in our land acknowledgement that we acknowledge all of the many stewards of our place, that is to say that we know that the work we do today is built on the shoulders of those who came before us. The place that we stay in today has the experience that I am living currently, but also has many experiences that I don't know. And so all of those stories combined are what make our places. And it's important to acknowledge that, especially in a state that has thrived in white supremacy, that frequently there are stories that have been left out on purpose to marginalize communities and ensure the profit of few. And so it's really important in the process of storytelling to invite lots of people to come to the table and tell their experience of the place. And together we can gain a literacy, sometimes about our own places, that can reveal the complexity of what's there and guide us towards what's possible.
That's a beautiful description of complexity, and yeah, thank you for sharing more about that. Before I go forward, those that are just joining us, we're in conversation with RUCS, Rural Urban Exchange, and listening to Savannah share about that. And also we're going to have some more examples of those programs and connections from Mariel and Travis. Before we move on, Savannah, I do want to hear about these great projects that Mariel and Travis are doing, but can you tell how this is connected a little more to your story? Like what brought you into this work? How is this an expression of your life calling or your soul path, however you would understand that?
Well, the soul path, the soul journey, I think is still being revealed. But I will say that I've been I guess lucky in that my path has felt somewhat linear, although I've never been able, to know exactly what shape it would take. But, when I, growing up in Grayson Springs, I felt a really strong connection to my ancestors and the folks who had lived in this land, on that land before I had. I have an early memory of like writing poems to them sitting in my creek bed. So it was just very dense in my experience of the place. Um, and like writing poems about it was clearly the way for me to understand it, or asking, you know, my family members to tell me stories about it. So I think I understood from an early age the way that art and culture can help us express these like deeply known but not quite understood truths about ourselves and our places. And I think most of my life's work has been trying to unravel exactly how you get at that with other people. So when I went to the Governor's School for the Arts when I was in high school, and that was the first time that I understood um, that that a lot of people had access to arts and cultural experiences that like I didn't even know existed. So I came home pretty fired up about that, and a real sense of inequity around access. Um, so I helped to found a local arts agency in Grayson County at that time, and a local arts festival. And the work has sort of continued from there. I moved to Louisville and went to U of L. After high school, I was the first person in my family to go to college away, and worked for Paul Poetic Gallery then, and eventually Louisville Visual Art, and helped them found the Buy Local First Fair, which from the beginning was about the intersection of art and agriculture and small business. So it was there that I started to understand the ways that these different sectors connected, and the ways that a critical mass of people could really benefit all of them. So I went away to grad school in Oregon and learned a lot about folk studies there, and the ways that understanding where we're coming from can influence a strategy for now. And all of these things, I think, found their home together in Rux, and did so with a really powerful partnership of Apple Shop, you know, which as an organization is just so rooted in place, and the collaboration of just really brilliant Kentuckians in our founding steering committee who've, you know, become my best friends, and are all the smartest people in this project. I just happen to get to try and remember what they have said and tell it to you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Ariel and Travis are a great example of that. So excited to
Yeah,
bring them in.
yeah. So let's do bring them in. Mariel, welcome. Thanks. Mariel is with, I want to get this name right because it's awesome. Mariel's with the Fifth Element Farms and Apocalyptic Acres. And Mariel, you're part of the recent cohort. Yeah, share some about your experience with Rux, and share some about the Fifth Element Farms. One of the focuses of today was to look at how specifically food and farming are this great interchange, the place where we have so much commonality between the urban and rural spaces. So share some more about that, Mariel. Thanks for being on today.
Oh, thank you, Judd. Um, I am in my first year with the cohort. 2021 will be my second year. And I came into Rux just wanting to learn more about Kentucky. And it has turned into me developing my identity as a Kentuckian. My first weekend, I was listening to all these people talk about things they love about Kentucky, and I didn't think that that I had any similar story to tell. And as I've moved through the cohort and met so many great people, I understand that my people are very instrumental in the building of this state's economy, and I find great pride in that. And it's part of the reason why we started our little garden, was to connect to our ancestral roots. My friend of about, I don't know, 24 years, Michael George, and I, we purchased a vacant lot from the city of Louisville, found a grant to put a high tunnel greenhouse on it, and then replicated that model onto another vacant lot. And during the pandemic, decided to grow food to give away to our neighbors for free. And that's how Fifth
Yeah.
Element Farms
And
started.
tell us about the name of Fifth Element and Apocalyptic
Mhm.
Acres.
So it's Fifth Element Farms, aka Apocalyptic Acres. We started out with Apocalyptic Acres because in March we're out there planting and we were in the middle of an apocalypse. And the alliteration is beautiful, Apocalyptic Acres. And a lot of our friends said that is very morbid. You should change that name. So we thought about it, but we wanted to keep it because, again, the alliteration is phenomenal. So Michael and I are both fans of hip hop culture, and there are 5 elements of hip hop culture. One of them being knowledge, and so we are relying on the knowledge of our ancestors and their agricultural prowess to guide us toward liberation. So Fifth Element Farms, aka Apocalyptic Acres.
That's awesome. So what have you been learning about gardening?
It's hard. Um, I just thought, yeah, we'll put some stuff in the ground and it'll grow. Um, but I have learned more about airflow and germination and diseases and bugs that I have never known existed in my life. And it just gives me such an appreciation for the members of my family who toiled so hard for me to be here today. And it gives me such an appreciation for the food that I am earning. I live with my grandmother and I bring her zucchini and she is thrilled. And we are trying to grow corn in a high tunnel and people are telling us, oh, that's impossible. You won't be able to do it. And we had a huge yield of corn. So it's love, bringing that food to my grandmother, and it is freedom. Fannie Lou Hamer says if you have a pig and a garden, you're able to feed your family, then nobody can push you around. So again, it's liberation for us as Black people, being able to feed ourselves and take care of our community.
That's beautiful. What are some of the sources of knowledge around gardening, but also I love this connection that you're making to your family and cultural history and farming. Are there some other resources where you're learning about that or people that have inspired you in that work?
Absolutely. Ruck's Connection, Ashley Smith, who is over Black Soil, Our Better Nature. She is a wealth of knowledge about our ancestral roots, making me proud of the tobacco, equestrian, hemp, and bourbon industries of Kentucky because it was us who had a very integral part in building that in Kentucky. Ashley is wonderful. We just went to Russellville and met the proprietor of the community garden there, and we got to eat food from their land. So I've been able to get around the state and meet other Black farmers whom I didn't even know existed. I never met anybody Black who was a farmer. So seeing these people and feeling the kinderness with them, it lets me know what is possible for me and gives me a great appreciation for who we are and what we've provided this state.
Thanks, Meryl. Yeah. Can you share in your experience with Rux? I mean, you all have met how many times as a cohort? You haven't met this year, but
I've been in 3 weekends.
3 weekends. Can you share a moment or an experience or a memory from one of those weekends that was especially maybe meaningful or powerful for you?
Yeah, my very first weekend, my roommate, the other Savannah, shout out to Savannah Napier Hall. She is from Knott County, and as I'm having this struggle with my identity as a Black Kentuckian, she revealed to me for the first time that a banjo is an African instrument and that bluegrass music is rooted in call and response, which was taken from enslaved people. I cried because I didn't realize that, and I was upset also because that part of my legacy was taken from me. And hidden in plain sight from me. That was a very powerful moment, and I am so grateful to her for sharing that knowledge with me. It makes me proud to be a Kentuckian.
It makes me proud. I didn't know that either. So just your sharing that makes me feel good for some reason. I don't play the banjo, but just hearing those connections is really
Well,
beautiful.
I got a banjo so that I could learn because it's mine.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So how can we in Louisville, I mean, you've got 2 different garden plots. How can we be supportive of you and the work that you're doing?
Oh, well, we have a lot of mulch to move. If you want to come move some mulch. Also, we need cardboard. We're trying to kill the grass and weeds. That grass is gangster, boy. So we are trying to cover that up and strengthen our soil with wood chips on top. We love and welcome volunteers. If you have starts that you may have too many of, give them to us. We will put that stuff in the ground and grow it. We might not know what we're doing, but figure it out.
Beautiful. What else are you growing in your gardens?
We've done kale, collards, peppers, crooked neck squash. I said corn. I think I said corn. Eggplant. We have cantaloupe, watermelon, and pumpkin going right now. A whole lot of stuff, and that is all due to my friend Michael, who is in this with me. I might not know what I'm doing, and I say that, and it does not give him the credit that he deserves, because Michael studied for about 2 years on how to grow food so that we could be successful in this venture, and really I just followed his lead and knowledge.
Well, Mariel, I bow to you in your courage of doing that. Have a garden that I work on down in Bardstown, Kentucky, and I'm learning the same thing. Like, I'm just completely clueless, and it's an adventure to do. And I want to thank you, Mariel, just your spirit, your courage to jump out and do this. I really believe what you're doing right now is the future. There's no reason that every lot in Louisville shouldn't be filled with food. And that is a policy structural issue that we really need to address in Louisville. I know you've gotten those from the city, and people are trying to do that. And so those that are listening, let's all join together and plant foods in our yards and gardens and transform these lots. You have any thoughts on how we can do that? Since you all have gone through that process, any guidance on if folks want to transform lots?
I mean, just do it until they stop you.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, we heard it here. Thanks, Mariel.
Never hurt anybody.
There you go. Mariel, I hope to come back to you. I want to bring in Travis in the conversation, but thanks for sharing all the great stuff that you're doing. Appreciate you being on. Sure. Travis, I want to bring you into the conversation, and if you can unmute yourself and tell us, Travis, you are the co-founder of Good for Heart Farms, and if you would share some of your story with us, that would be great. You'd have to unmute yourself there and join in the conversation. Also, tell us, Travis, a little bit of your story. I'm always fascinated in stories that go with people's work. Yeah, you still have to unmute yourself there. I think I might be able to help unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, that helped. That gave me a little box here.
Yeah, good.
To click. Thank you.
Travis, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm here in Letcher County, Kentucky, in the mountains, far eastern Kentucky. I think you were asking me a question there while I was looking for my mute switch. So if you could restate it.
Sure, of course. Yeah, want to tell us some about Good for Heart Farms that you've helped create, and some of your experience with Rux, and a little bit of your story.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Well, I moved away from the mountains when I joined the military, and quickly was injured and made my way out of the military. I left Kentucky again right away as a blind veteran, and went out west to go to school. And I had determined that as a blind person, I'd probably be more successful in an urban environment where I could navigate on the streets and have public transportation and things like that, get to an airport on my own, and have access to a university. But after a few years, I wanted to come home and see what I could do to help the local food system. While I was studying, I was just amazed by the access to food that I had out there in the Salinas Valley area of California. Just an abundance of fresh food. It was farmers markets were everywhere. It was cheap, and I couldn't believe that my family was back here and really didn't have access to that, especially when only a couple decades before, our grandma and our uncles were raising gardens to feed the family. The food system changed quickly and dramatically. So yeah, my hope became to come home, start some type of food access venture with my family. And what we ended up with was Good for Your Heart Farms here in Letcher County. And we you know, like Mariel said, you can study how to grow things and read books, and but until you get your hands dirty and start doing it, you really don't know what you're doing. And you have to find the old timers. You have to find the people from our past to remind us about, you know, what our land is and how they grew on it. So I can't go ahead.
Yeah, can you share some about your experience? How did you get connected with Rux, and what's been some of your experience in the cohort?
So I had a friend. This was the first summer that I had. I got the farm cleaned up, and he asked if I'd be willing to host a group of people for a dinner at the farm, and I agreed. And it was a Rux weekend, and they wanted to have dinner and a meeting at a local farmer's place, and I was fortunate to be that farmer. Then I was so interested and excited by what they were doing that the next year I had put in an application to join them and do my own 2 years of learning.
That's a couple of things. One, I want to thank you for your service. I also appreciate your your courage. I can imagine not being able to see and farming. I was out on our farm this weekend, and I'm holding up my finger. I crushed my finger in a Kubota gate, and I have all the privileges of being able to see. That would sound like quite a challenge to farm, and not be able to see. Can you share some about that experience and journey?
Yeah. I knew it was going to be a huge challenge, but I had moved to different urban areas and traveled a lot over the decade as a blind person. So I was full of confidence. Then when I got here on the farm, I was surrounded by a different briar bushes and overgrowth, and it was hard just to stay oriented. But I spent time outside and just listen to the environment and try to connect myself to my space. And I, first of all, I just had to accept the fact that I was going to have to take my time and let it come to me. And during that process, I mean, I'm still in it every day. I'm learning something, but I have my family, my dad and my sister, my mom, uncle, nephews, brother-in-law, all doing their part to help me out and help us create something that's good for all of us. Yet while I've been figuring out the how to do my part as a blind farmer, and it's been great. It's very fulfilling. One of the things I learned quickly was that the high tunnel situation was perfect for me, because you put me in a rectangle and I'm like a little robot. I can do about anything.
Mm. Yeah. Let's Travis, thanks for your story. And again, you all are so inspiring to me. Let's have some questions. We probably have some questions on Facebook, and Savannah or anybody else on Zoom have questions, please jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question of you both. As someone who's known you both for a little while now, I'm really inspired by each of your projects because they are rooted in a real love of your community. And it's clear that you started this work because you wanted, because you know that people in your community deserve access to healthy, good food, and because you wanted to reconnect people in your community to their heritage and agriculture. It's such generative work. You're literally feeding people. And I'm sure that being a part of something so positive must have changed you in some way. So I'm just curious, how has the journey of doing something so positive impacted you?
One of the things that really seeded this idea of growing things in my heart was a visit I had with some blinded veterans in London, England. I was at a museum, and they were telling us about veterans after the World War. All around the city, they had veterans gardens, and the veterans would work the gardens together. And something hit deep inside of me, and I knew that must have been so fulfilling to them, coming home and finding a new way to serve and connect. So that was probably the first seed of this whole idea for me.
Thank you, Travis. Mariel, that's a great question. How about you?
Well, I never really even liked going outside before this. I'm a air conditioning, sweet tea on the porch kind of person. So it has really made me get outside and also appreciate nature. Even in the city, you would think, hearing the noises of the city, it would take away from the beauty of nature. But this is my own little concrete jungle. So those noises just mix in with the bugs. And to me, it's all natural. And it also has made me appreciate earning the food. And it's made me think about the work I put in to earn other things as well.
Mm. Thank you. Other questions from those that are on Zoom, or again, anybody on Facebook have a question? There's a couple of people are echoing some of your quotes. You're being quoted on Facebook, Mariel, when you said, "Just do it until they stop you." Everybody loves that one. And then Travis, listen to the old timer wisdom. Then you said
absolutely.
that, yeah, people are really echoing your statement there. I think people are responding to that.
And we started off selling our food, and we still do, at the local farmers market. And the connections we've made with old timers are, it may be, it's definitely one of the most valuable things that we've earned in this experience.
Travis, can you talk more about your experience with Rux? The same question that I had for Mariel. In the times that you all have been together, was there a moment or an experience that was especially meaningful for you?
Yeah, there's so many. One of the things that stands out the most was some interactions we had in outside of Muhlenberg County. At the we had the opportunity to stay on the military base there, and it was a military base that I'd trained on as a sighted soldier, and it was the first time I'd been back there. Hmm. So it was really interesting for me to be back there, depending on people who all over the state who I connected with and gained trust in to lead me around. And but we had a big conversation about the military experience and the types of people that serve in the military, and it was really powerful, and I feel like we all learned a lot from it.
Yeah, thank you. Savannah, can you tell us some, I mean, these are just two of the projects that have emerged, and I know there are others. What, how do you go about, I mean, how much do you bring people together to do projects, and how much do those just kind of emerge naturally as people connect? Can you share some about your method around that?
Absolutely, and that's a good question with a long answer, but I'll try and give you the short answer and also point you to the case studies and handbook that were just published by the Rural Urban Exchange that really get into the full story of projects in Rux, and say that over time the framework has developed to really focus on people, place, and partnership. So partnership, not exactly projects. And we made that distinction because we realized that while the act of bringing people together to build close relationships does frequently produce projects, it doesn't do so neatly and on a timeline that can be tracked in a 2-year cohort program, and that trying to force it into those parameters doesn't actually support the work. So instead, we found that you start by asking participants to share conversations that challenge their identities, but also to help them discover commonalities. And through that process and the iterative nature of it, you can continue to reveal and emphasize connections, and that develops intercultural competence. And if you do that at the same time that you're having really profound experiences and like in other communities that feel like you're being invited to something just like very sacred and special to folks, like a fish fry at the Hotel Metropolitan, or a theater performance that's made just for Rux in an Appalachian bar in Harlan. Experiences like that just like blow up your idea of what it is to be in a place, while you're also blowing up your idea internally of what it means to be a Kentuckian. And you're also getting to have that internal and external experience alongside a lot of other people. It's just so much stimulation and so much cross-pollination that all of the shaking up of our normal way of being tends to produce really new ways of thinking. And because we believe that true leadership is a process of deepening people's connection to others, and that those connections are the pipelines through which good ideas flow. We know that these good ideas that have been infused with all of these new ways of thinking will produce new approaches to some of the more persistent challenges in Kentucky. So sorry, that was a long way around. Thanks for sticking with me. But
No,
that's
and
how
I think that's really important. And that's one of the things LouLab is trying to focus on, are what are principles and practices and methods that, transcend our different projects. And I really appreciate the way you articulate the need for that, and the magic of just bringing people together to have connections is just powerful, and you can let that do its work. So Savannah, how can we have just a few minutes left. I don't know if there's some comments or questions from other folks that are on the chat, or again Facebook. How can we be supportive of Rux and all the amazing stuff that you're doing? I do want to make note that you mentioned a really good resource, and I did download it from your website. And so I would encourage people, we'll put in the chat box after this is over on Facebook a link to your website. But what are other ways we can be supportive of you and the work that you're doing?
Well, I firmly believe everybody has a role to play, so it depends on who you are, what you can do. But everybody can share this work. Maybe you're a person who could benefit from this process. We'd love to see you apply. Maybe you're a community somewhere in the state that would love to help host Rux. We'd love to get to know your community. Maybe you're someone who can support the work financially. We'd love to get to know you and think about that together. But generally, even if you can't do any of those things, or if this strategy specifically isn't the one for you, we invite you to think about the ground that you stand on, think about the place that you're connected to, and who else you need to understand better to be able to serve your purpose in your place. And then take the first step to connect to them.
So I want to close and give Mariel, Travis an opportunity for you all to, Mariel, and Travis, what are you hoping for in the coming future? Like, what are your edges with the work that you're doing, but also with life in general? What do you see emerging for you? Mariel, can you jump in on that?
We gave away about 200 pounds of food this growing season so far. And we give all that food away to the people who live on the blocks where the greenhouses are located. So next year, we hope to be able to expand to a 2-block radius each direction and be able to feed more people. And also to get people interested in growing for themselves. We just put up a tutorial on how to make your own self-watering planter. So if you don't have a green thumb, like I didn't a few years ago, you don't even have to water it. You just need some seeds and a bottle and some soil and a pair of scissors, and you can make a planter to water yourself. So to get more people in our neighborhoods growing and to give away a lot more food next year.
That's beautiful. And we celebrate 200 pounds of food. I mean, already that's just beautiful. So Mariel, thank you for what you're doing in your vision. And you are definitely an example of the future that is wanting to emerge in Louisville. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Travis, how about you? What's emerging for you? What does the future look like?
Well, we're refining our processes of growing and processing food. Every season, we learn, we succeed and learn, and we fail and learn more frequently sometimes. And that's something you learn as a grower. That failure is learning, so it's there's always something positive coming out of it. But what I hope to do, I hope to get my farm set up so that I can show the upcoming generation how you can grow in different environments, controlled environments like the tunnels, or other systems that might come along, and how to grow right in the soil that we have here in the mountains. And one of the most fulfilling things I've had a chance to do here on the farm was with a group called SWAP, Sharing with Appalachian People. They brought some kids from urban environments in Asian countries here, and they helped me pull the hay off the strawberries, and these teenagers were taking pictures with little snails and singing, and it was one of the most joyous times I've had on the farm. So if I could bring, if I could have kids of different types from all over the state and even out of state and even out of country come and see food being grown by an Appalachian person, a Kentuckian, I would feel that I was living my happiest future.
Oh, beautiful. Maybe so. And so we can, where can we find out more information about your farm? You have a website?
I have a Facebook page, Good for
Okay.
Your Heart Farms. Hopefully next year I'll have me a nice brand YouTube channel, but for now I put up some farm stuff on my personal YouTube, but our
great.
Facebook farm page is where you get the good stuff.
Super. We'll put that in our the comment box as well at the end of the program so people can get in touch with you. And Travis, yeah, thank you. Man, you all are just so, and all three of you, like what inspiring, like this just gives me hope for the future, which we're all in need of right now. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm deeply appreciative. And for giving us some time today to take your afternoon and share with us about how we can create a better, more equal, just, thriving community. So Mariel, Travis, and Savannah, deep bow to both of you, and those of you that have been joining us on Facebook and on Zoom. Thanks for being present with us today, and come back every Thursday at 3 o'clock to learn more about great things happening in Louisville. So you all can unmute yourself and say goodbye to the crowd. Thank you all. Appreciate you being
Thanks,
on
everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good hearing you, Mariel and Savannah.
You too. Thanks, y'all.
Travis.
Mhm.